These are fun, off-the-cuff discussions on movies and streaming series, both new and old.
Together, we'll attempt to bridge the gap between Hollywood industry insider and the casual viewer.
This is Alec.
And I'm Ben.
And you're listening to the Cinema A to B podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cinema A to B, where Ben and I get to talk about whatever we really want to talk about, whatever movie it's happening, and you get to just join along and listen. So today, we are going to be talking about 2016's Taylor Sheridan's, and I'm going to speak on why I'm saying that, Hell or High Water. Ben, thoughts?
So I just watched this prior to our recording, and I think it's only the second time I've seen this film. I enjoyed it immensely the first time, and it was a better viewing, which kind of blew me away. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to feel the same way about this movie that I did the first time. And no, I think it went up a few notches. It had been every bit of 8 years since I'd seen it the first time. So I think that had to do with me being 8 years older and 8 years of looking at the world differently. And this may be one of the last great modern American Westerns, along with Wind River and then Yellowstone. And what do they all have in common? Sheridan.
Taylor Sheridan. I mean, I'd even say Sicario is kind of a neo-noir Western in its own vein. And to speak on it, like, I know this was not directed by Sheridan. Sheridan did direct Wind River. That was his first. And so everyone talks about, or not everyone, but like it's talked about that Sheridan has like this 3-movie arc of the, American West, and it's Sicario, it's this movie, and it's Wind River. And I say this movie is Taylor Sheridan's because this feels very similar to Wind River a lot. And the director, while he's done other stuff, this is kind of like the biggest thing he's done. And having seen episodes of Yellowstone, having seen other movies by Taylor Sheridan, by other stuff that he's done, he's written, created, this feels like he had his hand in it the entire process. Like, he didn't want to direct, but he definitely kind of pushed the envelope and kind of pushed his narrative of how he wanted it to be seen, how he wanted it to be done, kind of a thing. So, obviously I think he was a producer on it as well, which would obviously make sense. But this was, actually, no, he was not a producer on this, on Hell or High Water. I do know, like, after Sicario and this, he really got some acclaim, and that's where he was able to start pitching some of this other stuff that he was doing. So I saw this again today. I rewatched it.
I mean, we're in the same boat. This is fresh. This is as fresh of it as anything I think we've discussed.
I will say that I've seen this movie multiple times. I adore this movie. I really like Sicario a lot. I love Denis. I love Deakins. I think that movie is absolutely amazingly shot well. But out of the Taylor Sheridan trilogy or anything he's really done, this is my favorite of his. Just everything about it is great to me. Like, when I sit down and watch it, it's one of those, I don't say it's a guilty pleasure because I don't feel guilty watching it. And it's not a happy movie, but there's just something about it. Like, this is on rotation of like, where I'm like, I want to throw something on in the background, or just, I have 20 minutes. I'm not in a show. I'm not doing whatever, like what I want to watch. It's like this, The Big Short, obviously Oceans is always kind of in the back burner, but like there's a couple stuff that's always kind of like, I watch 20 minutes of it and like I'm happy, and just there's certain moments I really enjoy. And this movie happens to be one of them that really kind of hits for me.
I probably prefer Wind River.
Okay. That one's a brutal film. I mean, that one is more brutal than this.
Yes, it is. It is. This moves much better. The pacing on this film is easy. It's an easier watch than Wind River, but at first glance, I think I probably would still give Wind River the nod as my favorite of kind of all the stuff he's done. But this feels much more like a classic American Western. And I know we've had conversations about that genre before where it's like, oh, everybody's sick of Westerns. And it's like, yeah, I think people are kind of tired of like the traditional Western with horses and cowboys. And yeah, I think that's kind of been beat to death, although enough time will pass and then it'll kind of come around again. But specific genre of a Western which technically Star Wars A New Hope is a Western. That genre still works. And this movie is proof positive of why that formula still is so good. And I was watching it again, you know, like you said, you watched it today. I watched it today as well. And I was just awestruck watching it going, yep, he's replaced Ford and Chevy pickup trucks. These could easily be guys on horseback. And the Texas Ranger's the Texas Ranger. And and the Homestead is the Homestead. And it was pretty wild to watch it a second time through that lens of, and then even the way that the cinematographer was framing certain shots, like on that front porch, was like, yeah, I've seen that shot a million times in the great Westerns from the 40s, 50s, and in the 60s. The film is beautiful. And
yeah, it is.
And the cinematography is very deliberate, and they hold on shots for a while. There's not a rush to jump into the next setup unless it's one of the, you know, action sequences, which they do very well. It was a better second viewing, and I couldn't believe it because I knew now where everything was headed, and it still was a better watch. So yeah, I think this film's a little bit underrated. When I go onto the movie database and see that it sits at 7.6, I think this is definitely an 8 to an 8.2 is probably where I would put it. Yeah. And yeah, shout out to Taylor Sheridan from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Yeah. At least he was born there, right? His material doesn't feel like a guy that grew up in Carolina, but
in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, especially not Chapel Hill. But yeah, this guy's got a command of what kind of makes a Western, and it's not merely the trappings of horseback, and it's deeper than that. It is at its core, this is another film about a family.
So one of the things that I really enjoy about this film, from a writing standpoint, from an acting standpoint, is that I really don't know who to root for. Like, that's the hardest part is, you know, like on one hand, like obviously the antagonist is Texas Midlands Bank. Boom, done. That's the only, but other than that, like, I don't, like, you would think, like, obviously with Chris Pine and Ben Foster, who both have amazing chemistry together the entire time. And this is my favorite Ben Foster role of all time. I think he's actually a very underused, undervalued actor. But in this, it just shows me, because on the surface, I should dislike his character. And he's abrasive. He's egotistical. He is, you know, just that guy who I hate. But his love for his brother, his willingness to do whatever for family, there's just something, and the interplay between them, there's just something that draws you in, that you kind of are like, he's the crazy uncle, you know, he's crazy, but he's family, like, you know, or whatever. And there's just that kind of bond that just draws you to it. But then on the flip side, it's not like I'm upset at the Texas Rangers. Like, it's not like they're the antagonists. Like, I want them to win too, because obviously they're the good guys trying to stop this, you know, these things, and, you know, people die and things of that sort. So it's Sheridan really does a fantastic job of just drawing you into these characters, of making you want to root for them, even though they're diametrically opposed, that they are actually against each other. And so few movies do that. Like, I mean, we talk about Usual Suspects. Like, I am 100% sided on the criminals and have no desire to root for Agent Kuyan, or I forget his name, but I think that's correct. But Sheridan just kind of toes that line of doesn't let you, like, basically you have to decide if you're rooting for them or not, because he's going to make them likable.
Yeah, it's morally ambiguous to an extent, and which is very much more in line with real life. And there's something with these bank heist films, because the same is true of Heat. And then the same is true of The Town as well, which the town predates this by 6 years, and they do share some similarities. with kind of a protagonist on the wrong side of the law. Similarities kind of stop there. This film stands well on its own, apart from the town and apart from, frankly, Heat, and it goes beyond the setting. But to your point, I noticed something with Ben Foster's character, Tanner, that I never noticed before. And I don't know why I didn't notice it, but after Bridges kills him up in the hills and he slumped over, there's a rattlesnake at his feet.
Yep.
And
there is.
I don't know why I didn't notice that the first time, but it was almost like the laws of nature were upon him and he was going to meet his end, either the end of that bullet or the freaking snake was going to get him. And I don't know why I missed that the first time, but I was like, oh, well, yeah, it's almost like the universe was tilted towards him, and he knew it, and it was just like, no, I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. So, and everybody's got these limits that they'll go to, that they're willing to go to, and he doesn't really have any. And then contrast that with Pine's character, Toby, and
who is very distinct.
He didn't want to take a life at all, but he did set these things into motion. And so it's like, you're right. It's this, you're going to wrestle with the moral questions that this movie raises. And I think that's the power of the film, is that well after the credits roll, you're like, man, I don't know.
Still thinking about it. I mean, to this day, I still wonder in my mind what happens in that next meetup between Chris Pine, and so it's one of those of like, what's happening? Like, I don't want, like, if you haven't seen it, like, I don't want to spoil too much.
Well,
but
no.
That meetup between.
No, the film's 8 years old. We're playing spoiler on this. We're going spoiler free on a film made in 2016.
Is Jeff Bridges just going to go there and they're going to talk, or is only one of them going to walk away?
Bridges hinted at that. He's like, maybe I'll give you your piece. And then Bridges is like, well, maybe I'll give you yours.
I'll give you your piece. Yeah. So that's, So this is the type of dialogue that I talk about with friends where that I'm frustrated at certain movies, especially some of the recent Star Wars ones, where I'm feeling like the dialogue is just there. And I don't need dialogue to be super serious. I don't need dialogue to be like, it has to be ushering in something momentous, like a big speech. It just needs to be very poignant, very purposeful, kind of not just let's throw in words to do stuff, but like everything that's said in this film either has weight or has purpose of why it's being said. It's not just filler. And Sheridan is great in all of his films that he's done this in. And I really do like Wind River a lot. I've seen it a couple times, and it's brutal every single time I see it. This one is just, for me, a little bit more rewatchable. And there's something about, like I said, the interplay between Chris Pine and Ben Foster is really good, of how Chris Pine is like the antithesis of Ben, Toby is the antithesis of Tanner, of like, he's so reserved, so quiet, so, kind of just not to take the world as it is, but kind of like he's going to take his beatings until there's a point where Ben Foster, as Tanner, is just, the moment like someone throws hands, he's going to be in the mix with everybody and going to be like, nope, I'm gonna punch somebody out myself. I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna take care of this. And it's just so interesting to see the two of them play off each other, because they do so well, because they do play like brothers. Like, it feels so real, like they could actually be brothers in real life, of the way they're acting to each other. Man. I mean, it's like one of my like little scenes is when they get back and Ben Foster grabs a beer. Tanner grabs a beer from the refrigerator, and Toby walks in. And he's just like, I need you sober. And Tanner comes back and he goes, who gets drunk on beer? And it's like this is a conversation they've had before. Like, this is stuff that they've
the dialogue in the film is super, super quick and witty.
Yeah.
And Bridges' interaction with Gil is just hysterical. And unfortunately, they have that funny exchange in the hotel room where he's just really getting on him, making Indian jokes and then switching to Mexican jokes, and which is just hysterical, super politically incorrect, which I love. And but it's done in a really like fun manner. But he tells him, he's like, when I'm dead and gone, this is what you're going to like chuckle about. These are the stories you're going to tell about me. And unfortunately, that just isn't true because Tanner kills Gil. And really that's the moment where you're like, yeah, Tanner's got to go. Like even as even as an unbiased viewer, you're just like, no, his time is up. Like this guy just loves carnage. And now there's another thing that I just noticed, and I should have recognized it because it's in my stomping grounds, or at least close to where my parents are. But the old man in the bank who's got the gun, that's Buck Taylor from Gunsmoke. So super funny cameo. Awesome. Yeah, that's Buck Taylor. And the only reason I know that is because a couple hours from me, Dodge City Casino used to run an ad campaign with Buck Taylor in it, like probably 5 or 6 years ago. And so, yeah, that's the old man. And so, you have like a king of Westerns in a modern American Western. And then they ask him like, you got a gun on you? He's like, hell yeah,
like, of course I got a gun.
You got to rob that too?
I mean, it's so fun, the interplay kind of some of these, these people from West Texas or whatever. And like when Jeff Bridges is talking to the truck driver, right near the beginning or whatever, he goes, they don't want to find me. They'll be at the short end of a long rope or they'll be at the wrong end of a short rope or something like that. And he's just like, well, that, make it easier for everybody but you. He goes, yeah, if you can find the tree. And he's just like, I love West Texas. It's just this fun interplay. The dialogue's witty. The acting is fantastic, pretty much from everybody. Fun little fact. I find for those people who don't know, like movies very rarely get shot in sequential order. They're usually all over the place because if they're at a location, they're going to shoot all the scenes at that location, those kind of things. But so the scene with Chris Pine and Jeff Bridges, that was Chris Pine's last day and Jeff Bridges' first day. So like that scene between the two of them. So there was like, and that's the only scene they share together. There's no other scene they share together. So it's pretty much like Jeff Bridges is only in scenes with some of the townspeople and with Gil. Very rarely does he actually. I mean, like he's never technically in the same frame, even with Ben Foster's character Tanner. And one of the things I think it also does is because there's not long breaks in between where you're shooting with this other person, you can build that bond. You can kind of maintain that working relationship, that friendship. It's easier to get back into that feeling and build upon it, as opposed to like, hey, we're shooting together for, a week at this location, and then they're shooting at other locations that one of us is not in, and we don't see each other for, a couple weeks to a month, and they get back in, and it's like, hey, you got to build that back up. But if you're shooting day after day or like week after week kind of consecutively, then it's nice balance of kind of continuing to build upon your working relationship and building on that friendship, which then obviously affects your acting style and how you can build that. And I think that's one of the main reasons why, Jeff Bridges and Gil do such a great job together. And then obviously why Ben Foster and Chris Pine do such a great job together. I mean, it's just outstanding. And I'll stop with the acting, but it's just really good.
No, I kind of want to continue with the acting because you won't see Chris Pine deliver this kind of performance, more of a reserved, controlled, restraint performance. What he's asked to do a lot is be the fast talker, and which he's very good at. Obviously, famously, probably best known as Kirk. But the other film that he did where it's closer to this but it's a little more animated, is Unstoppable with Denzel. And he plays more of a down on his luck character in that as well. But there are more outbursts from him than this, because even when he's frustrated with Tanner, it's more of just like it's more just like
kind of reserved.
Son of a bitch. Like he's like talked me into doing this again, or he's like gone and robbed this other bank while I'm like talking with the waitress, which is just a hysterical turn of events. And it was really interesting that they got Katie Mixon to play the waitress, because she's she's a really well-known actress. She had a long-standing sitcom, I think on ABC, and has been in Four Christmases and then my favorite is Eastbound and Down. Yeah. She's great. And so they get her for just a quick role, but she steals the scene, obviously. And it's like, yeah, you go and take your tip. I love when he tells Gil, like, I want you to go back there and get a description and then collect her $200. And those old guys at the table are like, yeah, good luck with that. But it was really interesting though, because none of those guys or her sold out Pine's character, Toby. Like none of them, they gave no description of him at all, which was really interesting. The only plot hole I was trying to find again was like their prints were all over that like Ford Bronco, like that truck.
The one that he torched?
But then he torched it. So it was like, nope, they explained that away. That works fine. So because that was the only one that didn't get buried, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, and going back to the diner people of why, especially that group of like old gentlemen, like 3 or 4 old gentlemen or whatever, is when the Texas Rangers come in and stuff like that, and Jeff Bridges is talking to him, he's just like, that's the bank that's been robbing me for the past like 20, 30 years or I forget exact line, but it's one of those, like, there's enough hate for the bank and enough frustration that they kind of want to see it get hurt. And so they're not going to like throw someone else under the bus. And so it's this interesting balance of like, how far are you willing to let something get hurt because it has hurt you, kind of a thing. And so it's this interesting balance. So
I didn't notice the first viewing as much. All the billboards were like with like debt relief or fast cash and then all the for sale signs. It just, I was oblivious to it in the first viewing. And I don't know why. I just was less sensitive to it. And compared to some other films where they might be set in, a more of a depressed area. But yeah, that's the major theme, is that these banks have been, and what opens on the first frame, for crying out loud, on the side of the Midlands Bank is that spray paint of like, multiple tours in Iraq, but no bailout for us. But the film isn't really that preachy. Like, it's there, but the story is really good. The script is really good. The bones of this are solid. It isn't just a vehicle for let's fight the man. Let's get one past the man. Like, there's more going on there, because this film could have easily fell into that of like just coming across as more of a shallow kind of preachy anti-Wall Street kind of film.
And Sheridan does this really well, because obviously even in Wind River, he's kind of has a very distinct kind of message he's trying to get across, but it never comes across preachy at all either. I would even say in Sicario, he has a political message, or not really political, but like a message that he's trying to get across, and it doesn't feel preachy. It's subtle and it's there and it's present. Like it's not like it's hidden. It's definitely out there, but he's not trying to beat you over the head with it. He's just like, this is what I'm telling a story about.
He could be confused for being preachy in this stuff, because Yellowstone's been accused of the same thing, but I don't think it's there. I've watched a little bit of that show, and I think the subtext is certainly there, but it's good storytelling too.
There's definitely something he wants to get across, but he still makes his story engaging. He still puts in good dialogue where it's not beating you over the head of it. And I'm going to talk about the flip side of the coin of where they're, you're talking about the beating you over the head of it. It's not great writing, but they're trying to like just push the message. The other half of that is we're just doing spectacle, that we're just doing how many bullets, explosions, spaceships can we fit into screen and not care about the dialogue, because, hey, all this, they're going to be so wowed by this, they're not going to care about the dialogue. And that's been some of my biggest problems especially with science fiction and some fantasy that's come out, specifically Star Wars stuff, where they just care about the spectacle. How great is the CGI, or how cool can we make this shot, and less about the characters and dialogue. And so there's like, it's not that it's difficult, but it takes effort to make good dialogue, to make good story choices, to make good beat choices, and not kind of go this route of being like, let's just save ourselves for the spectacle, or let's save ourselves for the message, but still hit these beats. Like, you can still have some spectacle, you can still have your message, but if you tie it up in both, you have a much better movie, better TV show than kind of what's coming out most of the times now.
Yeah, well, and the streamers, Disney, they're all gonna course correct here with the money they've been spending, and so the odds are good that you're going to start seeing more stuff like this, just because it's more affordable to make. I mean, they've run out of money basically. Like, the Marvel train is slowing down, and it's for a whole host of reasons. But my guess is we're going to start to get more smaller films that have been put through the ringer, and they still might have, they'll still have underpinnings of a political or some other messaging, which stuff's always had that, but it's always been,
it's not new.
No, but it's always been second or third or fourth or on down on the list behind a good story or at least entertaining, right? Like, entertainment should be priority one. And I feel like we're coming out of a window of time where entertainment's not been necessarily always priority one. And I'm not talking about the top 1 or 2% of directors or writers. Those folks get greenlit pretty much whatever they want. But I'm talking about beneath that, which encompasses a lot of network television and then some streaming projects as well. It's the quality's just not there. But I think they're running out of money. They might not be given another choice than to do stuff like Hell or High Water.
Well, I just read an article that was talking about the fact that Netflix itself is saying that it's changing to focus on quality and not quantity, which it's been producing so much. And it's like, I mean, I think some of that is the majority of that is exactly what you said. It's the bottom line is they're realizing that if you don't have those tentpole TV series or movies, no one's going to care, and they're going to drop you, even though you have hundreds of shows, hundreds of movies, because they're all trash. I mean, some people don't care. Like, some people obviously don't care as much as we do about this, but anyways, Hell or High Water.
They made it for $12 million, by the way.
Whoa! Holy cow!
Yeah.
Do we know how much the box office was?
Yeah, it did $27 million in the U.S. and Canada, and another 10.9 in some other. So the worldwide total was $37.9 million against a production budget of 12. Okay. And it didn't have a heavy marketing campaign.
No.
So, and the thing obviously has got legs. Like, this thing is 8 years old, but I mean, obviously we're talking about it today, but this thing's a nice fixture on streaming platforms for rent, or like I said, today I just watched it on Peacock. And I was frustratingly had to subscribe to Peacock because my wife's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and we had to watch the playoff game yesterday. Sorry to those of you that are Dolphins fans, but I checked it and I was like, "Oh, Hell or High Water's on Peacock." Why I don't own this, I don't know. And I know we've discussed that before, but like, I need to course correct myself for owning physical media. And this is easily one that should be in my collection.
There's so much about this. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cinematography. And obviously it's West Texas, so it's pretty flat. It's very monochromatic in a lot of different ways. And there's something, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously this is not but it feels like they've undersaturated the colors a lot. Like, they're not a ton, but it definitely doesn't feel... it's definitely not oversaturated. Like, everything feels a little muted. It feels a little, dare I say it, depressed in the color gamut. But it works. It still is visually interesting. It's still like, Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I don't. If you got another thought on that, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious. I'm now curious what you're going to say.
I'm going to say yes and no, because yes, the environment is got less saturation and is more browns, echoing very much a Dust Bowl kind of feel for very good reason. And then, but the skin tones, I think, do have good saturation. Honestly, when I watch this, the look of it is, the color palette is not unlike that of No Country for Old Men.
Yes.
And so a lot of it is the environment. It's not just the color grade. It's the fact that they are shooting in the middle of the country in Texas. And yeah, there's not a lot of green. It's a lot of cow pasture and wheat fields and ranches and with a lot of browns. And it does feel appropriately depressed with that kind of brown color palette. So but I think if I'm not mistaken, this was shot digitally. I don't think this was shot on film. Yeah, and it's only a 2K. For all you 4K snobs, the Arri RAW was like 2.8K, and then it was digitally mastered at 2K. So resolution 4K. Is not the end all be all. It is dynamic range and color information, and resolution falls so far down the list of what makes a great image. It's not even funny. Like this whole 4K obsession is just.
Ben, I want my 8K. Come on, man. See the difference. It's like real life.
You want to have an aneurysm from your 8K television. Just
no, because you don't have enough receptors in your eyes for 8K. You have
no, not really.
No. Well, because they're split into thirds, because it's like you have red, green, blue, and you have less, I think, less cones and pixels for 8K, and even in 4K, each one of those pixels can be all those colors, where your eye can only has thirds of everyone. So again, it's when people are like, "Oh my goodness, I can see." No,
you probably can't.
You really
no.
can't. Anyways,
in fact, I was researching projectors again. Nothing's wrong with my projector. It's fine. It's fine. It's a business projector marketed as a home entertainment projector. So the contrast isn't as good on it, but you've seen it. The image is still good. It's HD.
It's great.
And I'm looking at these 4K projectors, but then there's another BenQ that's HD, but it's got an LED light source that lasts way longer than the life of the projector. And then the contrast on it is 50,000-60,000 to 1, and the black levels are true black. And so I go and research it, and they basically said, this projector's $1,000, and there is no 4K projector that has black levels that does what this does until $4,000.
Yeah.
So it's if I upgrade it, I'll probably just stay with HD. So no, that was a super crazy tangent on resolution.
So, resolution definitely actually, does help in some regard. Obviously standard def to normal HD is huge. I would say that there is visually some stuff to 4K, but it just starts to peter out of, like you said, of what matters, of what makes you see what is a good image. But going back.
Yeah, this is a beautiful film.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it's in that 235 widescreen, and the framing is just exquisite. From the first frame to the last, it's perfect. It is textbook on how to frame for ultra. It's not even ultra, but the wider screen format.
Yeah.
The way he fills the frame is perfect every time. It doesn't really do anything crazy. There's not really any camera movements that are I haven't really seen that before. But don't mistake that for paint by numbers. It's high level cinematography. The lighting, the framing, and then the edit just goes. The edit's in invisible edit, which for me means that the edit is completely on point, because I don't really notice it. And I think it's underrated.
Oh, highly underrated. I really, really enjoy this film a lot. And again, not because it's a happy movie, because it's one of those things that when I see something really good, I just want to continue to consume it and find new things or see new things or just revisit some of those moments. Like the whole, when Tanner's at the casino the first time and he's playing poker and he has that kind of run with the Comanche, and that whole kind of discussion, that dialogue there is so great. It feels, it has so much weight. But one of my favorite things is they bring it back at the end right before he dies, where he just goes, Lord of the Plains, and it's these characters have arcs, and it's huge. Of like, these characters do move forward. They get changed by what happens in the film, or realize their potential, or realize. I mean, and for Tanner, that was, look at me running from the law, not getting caught, kind of situation.
He just seemed to innately know that his thirst for not following the law would ultimately catch up with him. And then when he knew that could save his brother, he jumped at the chance. It's as much redemption as that character was going to have, was leading everybody on a wild goose chase away from Pine. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Foster is definitely, there's a theme here of being underrated. And I always have felt that Ben Foster is one of the more underrated actors in Hollywood. I don't know that he can carry a film. Nobody's really seems to have given him that pure opportunity to do so, but he steals the scene basically in everything he's in. I mean, it's a good movie, but Lone Survivor, he just runs circles around Mark Wahlberg as an actor. Like, it just runs circles around him. And I don't hate Mark Wahlberg, and Wahlberg's not a bad actor, but Foster's constantly operating on another level. Now, Pine matched his performance. Like, Pine really brought it. And so I give him a lot of credit. And then Bridges gives you that like different kind of speech pattern in this that's so much different from everything he's in, that he does feel like a different individual. Gil is in Yellowstone, so Sheridan
he is
brought him back. And he actually is Comanche. Yeah, for real. So
after this, the director did Outlaw King, which I haven't seen yet, and Chris Pine's in
I've seen that
so.
film. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's
good to know.
It's okay. it's all right.
This is the quick in review.
This is like a microcosm. Anyways, it's all right.
This happens a lot when we talk.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I think it's worth I think it's worth a watch. There's potential there.
All right. Well, we'll bypass that.
Because was that Netflix? I felt like
I think it was
Outlaw
Netflix.
King was Netflix. Yeah.
I always got that one confused with The King for a while.
Which is
fantastic.
Yeah, no, Outlaw King is not
great.
The King.
Not The King.
It's not. No. And for those of you listening, they don't know what we're talking about. The King is Timothy Chalamet on Netflix as well. And you
also had Joel Edgerton.
Basically it was his pet project.
Yeah.
And that is worth a watch.
Yeah. Well, and it has, oh my goodness, his name escapes me, played Batman in the most recent Batman. Also Twilight and Robert Pattinson.
Has a nice like a stealing scene. Yeah. No, we could discuss The King at some point, but
we will. We won't do Outlaw King. Anyways, so I guess we can talk. You have anything else for Hell or High Water that you wanted to hit? Or something
and I think for listeners that haven't seen this, we spoiled everything, but I can't apologize to that, because again, this thing's been around almost a decade.
If you like other Taylor Sheridan stuff, if you like Yellowstone or 1883 or 1923 or 1757 or 965, I don't know. He's got so many now, these offshoots. I mean, hey, print money for you, Taylor. Great job.
It's amazing when you can generate your own work like this, and you don't have to wait for the phone call. Except for a phone call from the studio that wants to like greenlight your project. That's a good position to be in. And this guy paid his dues. This guy's been around for a long time.
He's had those mentors, and obviously it shows. The only thing is the kind of fun fact, he was an actor for a while before he was a writer, and he is the cowhand on the horse.
Yes.
In this movie.
Yeah, these like it's the, what did he say? Is it 21st century? And I'm like running away from a fire, like across.
I'm running to water from away from a fire. It's like, no wonder my kids don't want to do what I do.
Yeah, it was this perfect microcosm of like a dying way of life.
Well, that was 2016's again, Taylor Sheridan's Hell or High Water.
Well, we appreciate everybody listening to another episode. We will join you all next week. with something else out of the bag that I don't really know at this moment what it'll be. Because we record these and then we just get to pick the release order, and it's not always the order that we've recorded them in. So I can't really tell you always what will be next week, but we appreciate everybody listening for sure.
Yes, we do. Thanks, everybody.